All right, welcome back to our ongoing explainer of Genesis. Today we are diving deep into chapter 15. And as we continue our series looking at Genesis through an ontological lens, we're going to see this chapter as way more than just an ancient story. We're looking at it as a profound statement about the very nature of reality itself.
So I want to kick things off with a pretty big question, one that really gets to the heart of what we're exploring today. What if a promise wasn't just, a statement of intent? What if it was an act that could fundamentally alter what is real? That's the core idea we're going to unpack.
Now, to help us wrap our heads around this, we're going to use a specific lens. It's called ontology. And hey, don't let the word scare you. It's simply the study of being and existence. All we're really asking is, what does Genesis 15 tell us about the fundamental building blocks of reality? What does it mean for God and for us to be? Okay, let's jump right in. We start with a man named Abram. Now, on the surface, he's doing great. He's just come off a major military victory, he's been blessed by a king, but on the inside, he's facing a deep, personal crisis about his own being, about his future. So the chapter opens with the word of Jehovah coming to Abram in a vision. And right out of the gate, you have to pay close attention to the wording here. God doesn't say, I will give you a shield, or I will give you a reward. He says, I am your shield, your reward. This is an ontological statement from the jump. God is defining his very being in relation to Abram. And this just lays Abram's problem bare, doesn't it? Even with God's incredible reassurance, Abram points to this massive, gaping hole in his own reality. He's basically saying, what can you possibly give me that matters? I'm childless. For him, a future without an heir isn't a real future at all. His legacy, his name, it all feels like it's heading for a dead end.
So, you've got this man in a full-blown existential crisis. How does God respond? Well, not with a simple, there, but with a staggering, reality-altering promise that is designed to completely reshape Abram's entire world. And what God does next is so brilliant. He doesn't just talk, he acts. He literally pulls Abram outside. He shifts Abram's focus from the finite, empty space of his tent to the infinite, dazzling expanse of the night sky. He's asking him to trade his current, limited reality for a brand new one, a future so vast, it's literally as uncountable as the stars.
And this verse right here, this is the absolute pivot point of the whole chapter. Abram believed. Now, in this context, belief isn't just wishful thinking, it's an act. It's Abram accepting God's promised reality as more real than his own present circumstances. And that very act of aligning his being with God's word is what redefines him, what makes him righteous. Okay, but let's be real. Belief is one thing, but Abram's human, right? To really live in this new reality, he needs something more solid. He needs an anchor, something tangible he can hold on to when the night sky is cloudy and his tent still feels just as empty as before.
So Abram asks for a sign, for some kind of certainty. And it's so important to see this not as doubt, but as a deep human need for assurance. He's really asking, how can I know, like in my bones, in my physical world, that this promised reality is secure? He needs a bridge from the promise in his head to the concrete world under his feet.
And God's answer is, well, it's intense. He tells Abram to prepare for this incredibly serious and physical ceremony. And this isn't a metaphor. It involves specific animals, this very specific action of dividing them and creating a literal physical path between the pieces. This is getting very real, very fast. All right, this is it. We're at the absolute climax of the chapter. What God does next to provide that certainty Abram is looking for is just shocking. Truly, nobody could have seen this coming. And you can just feel the whole mood shift. The air gets heavy. As this sacred ceremony is about to happen, Abram falls into this deep, supernatural sleep. He's made completely passive, he's just a witness, and the text describes a horror of great darkness falling on him, which tells you he is in the presence of something awesome and, frankly, overwhelmingly powerful.
And then, in this state, Abram sees it. He sees these symbols of God's raw, unfiltered presence, a smoking furnace and a flaming torch, and they move down that path he created, right between the animal halves. This is God himself physically participating in the ritual.
Okay, to really get how mind-blowing this is, we have to understand what this ritual meant back then. When two people made a covenant like this, they would both walk that path. It was a self-binding oath. They were essentially saying, if I break my end of this deal, may what happened to these animals happen to me. It was the most serious, binding promise you could possibly make.
And this is the mic drop moment of the entire chapter. Get this. Abram, the one who asked for the guarantee in the first place, is asleep. He does nothing. Only God, represented by the fire and smoke, passes between the pieces. God takes the entire weight of the oath and the curse for breaking it entirely upon his own being.
So, what's the result of all this? What does this incredible divine act actually do? Well, it doesn't just seal a deal. It fundamentally changes reality itself. It takes a hopeful promise and forges it into a guaranteed future.
So let's break down what this actually means through our ontological lens. First, God's word literally becomes reality. The promise to Abram isn't just a good idea anymore. It's as certain and unshakable as God's own existence because God has staked his very being on it. This means Abram's future is secure, not because of anything he will ever do, but because of who God is. And faith then becomes trusting in this brand new reality that God himself has created and guaranteed.
And that's really the incredible takeaway from Genesis 15. A promise from God isn't just a nice thought for the future. It is the very act of creating a new and unshakable reality, one that's grounded not in our circumstances, but in the very being of God himself. And that leaves us with a huge question. What does it mean for us to live in a reality that's defined by that kind of promise?